Hey Amarillo, I'm Skylar Gallup, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo. It's the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. We record each week at the beautiful offices of Rosenbach Contractors. They're experts in high-end design and construction, creating stunning, functional spaces through both new builds and remodels. Today's guest is Jody Holland. It's Jody's job to make people better. Now, that's a bit of an oversimplification, but really, he's a professional coach for leaders and companies and groups here in Amarillo, across the state and country, and has done a good amount of that transformational coaching worldwide. Jody is well-researched and experienced in his craft, and we talk about that. Mostly, though, we talk about people. What we are and what we do and how you can know more about them and yourself. Here's Jody. Jody Holland, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast.
Glad to be here. It's going to be a great show, I think.
I bet you it will. Where are you from? Let's start with that. What was childhood?
Childhood was the Texas Panhandle. I was born in Perryton. Didn't stay very long. My dad was a minister, so we moved from there to Hale Center, from Hale Center to Canadians. And most of my growing up was in Canadians, second grade through sophomore year. Then high school, last of it was in Abilene at Wiley. And then back and forth between San Angelo and Abilene for about 18 years, and then moved back up here.
Oh, perfect. I love Canadian. I love the community, the topography. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really just such a beautiful town.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people look at Amarillo and go, oh, it's so flat, it's so desolate. And then you get to about Miami and you're like, wow, this is different country. This looks pretty good.
Totally. So was Pastor Father the reason for the move all the way to Abilene?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, he took over Wiley Methodist Church out there, and then big city wasn't really his thing, which, if you can call Abilene a big city, it was about 100,000 people at the time. He made it about 2 years. I graduated high school, and he's like, I'm out. And then he moved back up to the Panhandle as soon as he could.
Nice. I have a unique affinity for people who call towns like Abilene big cities.
Yeah.
Because I think Amarillo is a big city.
Yeah. Well, it is a big city if you compare it to Canadian or a place like that. You're like, wow, it's like 100 times larger.
Yeah, yeah. So what were you studying at ASU?
First degree I got there was in communications, focused on the interpersonal side, did a lot of research on human interaction and sociology. Really had a blast in my degree, had some fantastic professors that pushed us beyond the go learn the theory. And they always said, if you can figure out how to apply it and make it practical, then the degree is worthwhile. But if all you remember is the theory, you might as well not go. And so I always thought that was fantastic. Went back a second time, got a master's in psychology.
I really like that. That's one of those things that seems inherent until you really look at, okay, but are we doing that?
Yeah.
That applying the theory, applying this thing that we've learned at a degree. Are you going to go out and put it to work? Because that's cool.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people fall in love with the theoretical side of things, but they never figure out the practical side of things. And the practical is what we need once we're an adult.
Yeah. So the interpersonal stuff, the human connection stuff that I know is pretty foundational to what you do now. Was that in you as a child? Where do you think that developed?
I really was always fascinated with it. I was a scrawny kid growing up, and so I always tried to understand why people were nice to you or why people were mean to you.
Interesting.
So even, I think it was about seventh grade, the first time that I picked up anything from a psychologist, and I picked up The Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud, and I'm like, wow, we are weird as creatures. Turns out Freud is kind of the weird one.
I've actually dipped into that book, and that would definitely leave you thinking that we are weird as humans.
Yes, very much so. But some symbolism that was in there was interesting, and that led me to just studying some other things, like Carl Rogers was just fascinating to me, and I started reading his stuff in high school. He was Ohio State University in the 1960s. He came up with the self-concept theory, how we form our identity and how we determine our self-worth and our self-confidence. So he was just a really interesting character, and it just kind of carried on. I did finally grow a little taller, but early on, it seemed like I was never going to make it to 5 foot tall.
It's interesting. I think a lot of times the skills that we develop come out of a place of like survival.
I agree
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
And I think most people will take whatever their struggle is or whatever their weakness is, and they go, I bet other people have this same problem. How could I help? And then we take that, we learn whatever we need practical skills wise to help, and then we go back and help people.
Yeah. So when you were studying people stuff at ASU, what did you think you were going to do with that?
Well, I took a career test sophomore year in college, and that was how I actually finally chose a major. I bounced around a little bit freshman and sophomore year in college. But the career test said that the thing that I would be the most passionate about was being with people and being in front of people. And they went through a list of things like broadcast journalism, sports announcing, and then they came across corporate training. And I go, ooh, what's corporate training? That sounds interesting. Because I always liked speaking, and I competed in junior high and high school in public speaking and impromptu speaking. So when they said that's a communication degree, I went, that's the one. So I always thought that I would do something like corporate training. And really, in essence, since the day I graduated, that's what I've done, because I trained and coached people for the state of Texas in a program called Project Rio, which is the reintegration of offenders. And I would take guys as they were coming out of prison, and I would teach them basic life skills, how to get a job, how to communicate more effectively, how to change their self-concept. So I thought it was really helpful, and most of them did well. Not all of them. Some of them went back, but most of them did well. And then I worked for the Boy Scouts for 4 years and designed training programs and coached and trained volunteers, and then worked for a consulting firm, did the same thing, and then started the business. So it's really kind of been that same pattern throughout the entire career of I stayed focused on how do you stay in front of people and help them see something better in themselves.
Okay, cool. So let's pop into your work with formerly incarcerated people.
Okay.
How impactful? How did you stumble into that?
Well, it was kind of an accident to find it. I needed a job. I was having trouble finding a job in San Angelo. Their job market was not great in 1994. So I went to the Workforce Center, and they go, well, if we're going to help you find a job, you need to take this communication course. And I went, really? I just graduated with a communication degree.
Just did all this.
But I went home, told my
Sure.
wife I was insulted because I was already married at that point, and she goes, I don't care if you're insulted, you're also unemployed. So I took the
Both
course.
of these things can be true.
Yeah, I took the course, loved the course, and initially, like right after I finished it, got hired to take over teaching that course. And then 2 months later, they moved me from teaching that course to running Project Rio. So I stumbled into the helping people one-on-one coaching thing because I initially got hired to actually teach the course. And the course was great, and the people were great there. I do think it was very impactful for people because so many people didn't know 3 basic skills when they were getting out of prison. Skill number 1, how to control yourself. And that was the reason most of them ended up incarcerated in the first place, is that self-control and emotional control wasn't there. Second thing was how to resolve conflict in a healthy manner.
The second part is the important part on that one.
Yes, a healthy manner. And then the third skill was effective decision-making.
Okay.
So those are the 3 main skills that I taught, and then I recruited employers to give people jobs, and I knew which kind of ex-con they would and would not hire. So I was very strategic about making sure that I didn't put anybody in a place where they could be a danger to anyone else. But we had a near perfect placement rate during that time. So it was like a 94% placement rate, which was almost double what it had been before that. But it was those 3 skills that I think made the difference.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Scouts.
Scouts was interesting too, because that was a college internship. I was in the Scouts for 1 year growing up. Okay. And that was it.
That's funny.
And it was actually when I was a teenager, I wanted to go spelunking, where you go down in a cave and go wander around.
Totally.
And a guy named John Ferris was a scoutmaster, and he goes, all right, we need you to go with us. We'd love to have some older kids. I go, that sounds fantastic. And I got 2 of my friends to go. And then he goes, what troop are y'all in? I'm like, Super Troopers? I don't know. What troop are we supposed to be in? He goes, no, I mean the Boy Scouts. I go, we're not in. So I joined scouting at 17 years old, which is a very odd time for people to join scouting. But I remember thinking, if I had had any idea you get to do all this cool stuff, I would have joined it much sooner. So it was a lot of fun. So that's kind of how I got initially connected with scouting. Did the internship in college. And then when I decided I didn't want to stay with the state because opportunities were incredibly limited and the pay was bad, I started looking around. I thought, man, I did that internship. I should apply with the Scouts. I knew they had professional scouters. So I applied and I got an offer in San Angelo and I got an offer in Abilene. And I kind of wanted to go back to Abilene, which is where we still had a little bit of family. So we moved to Abilene, worked for them for 4 years, and I always said, I will do my job until it's not fun anymore. And that probably seemed pretty immature at the time, but I still think that's a good principle to have.
It's not the worst, yeah.
And about 4 years in, when the boss that I really liked left and the boss that I really didn't like came in, I went, yeah, this is not fun anymore. So started applying for other jobs. I got 2 offers. One was from a convenience store, a company called Skinny's, which is just like Toot and Totem. They had 110 locations, and they were hiring a PR person to go to banquets and give away money, which actually would have been a pretty cool job.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, I don't know where you go from there. Like, you're going to give away money for the next 30 years, but you're not going to get anything else out of it. And the other one was running the HR consulting division of a consulting firm. I thought, that sounds pretty fantastic. So that's kind of how I got into what I do now, is I did that for about a year. And when Richard, my boss, left, he goes, man, they just like the accounting side of this. I don't know what's going to happen to HR. I go, well, we'll just see. And about 2 weeks in, I'm like, yeah, they don't want to keep HR. And so I just told them, well, hey, I'll make this easy on you. I'll take off. And they go, well, you can take your clients with you because we're not going to do HR. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
It's not normal, but I will take it. So I got to start my business in '99 with some clients already under my belt and converted them over to working directly with me instead of through that firm.
Okay, so let's pause. How old are you? In 99?
So in 99, I am 27 years old.
27.
Yeah.
What is home life? You referenced a wife.
So I was married. We had just had a kid. So she was about 6 months old at the time when I decided, hey, let's quit our job, get rid of the company vehicle, lose the expense account, and go all in on our own.
Yeah, great.
Which
How was your wife with that?
You know, amazingly, she was pretty supportive of it. She knew I wasn't happy in the other job once Richard had taken off. So she goes, just do it. I mean, worst case scenario, we lose what little we have and we start over. I'm like, I'm going to do everything in my power to not let that happen.
Yeah.
And we didn't lose anything. I mean, it was a rough start in
Sure.
the beginning, just like any business. But it ended up great. I mean, I did over 100,000 in revenue my first year in business, which was up from what I was doing working for the consulting firm. So in the end, it was a pretty good leap.
And so what was this business when it began?
So I originally called it, what was it? HCH Training. My little brother helped me out with it. We're last name Holland. My wife's maiden name was Clark. So it was Holland, Clark, and Holland Training.
Okay.
And I eventually just changed it back to Jody Holland, Inc.
Okay.
My little brother didn't stick around too long in that. He had other aspirations for his life. My wife really was just supportive, but never worked in the business.
Sure.
But started with that, and it really is the same thing back then that I do now. It is developmental assessments, training, and executive coaching. And I've been doing it 27 years this September.
Developmental assessments. Can you describe what that is?
So a psychometric or a developmental assessment can be used for coaching a person. So it would be things like, if you go all the way back to Adler in that time, the Big Five personality test, you figure out who a person was based on their personality, and then you use that information for predicting their behavioral patterns, and then that gives you what you need to coach them. So got certified in Myers-Briggs, got certified in the DISC, and I bought a franchise of Profiles International, which still own a franchise of Profiles International. Their tools are pre-hire, 360 evaluations, personality tests, a whole suite of tools, and they're really fantastic. So they're all about the employment side of evaluate the person, determine what they're going to be like, and then have a roadmap for making them successful.
Yeah, I think your work, what I know of it, I guess I think it would be easy to think that like HR and business consulting and development is about business skills and communication skills
Yeah.
and, and all of that makes sense. And I'm sure that there is an aspect of that to your work. But you go like much deeper,
Yeah.
like much, much
Yeah,
deeper
the
than
psychology degree I
that.
think has helped tremendously with that. And really all of the sociology that was blended in with interpersonal communication was really helpful too. So a lot of people go, "Oh, I went to college. I don't know what you do with your degree now." I have used every bit of my degree. I really, like, it was a fantastic degree to get for what I do now, but it does go pretty deep into figuring people out. And I've continued to study that throughout my entire life. Like, if you get out of college and you stop reading books and growing, you really are not getting any better. You are exactly like you were when you were 22 years old and you got out.
Oh,
And
what
I
a
don't want to
place,
be like
what
that.
a place to stay stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what is your? I would be interested to hear what is your approach or theory to making a person or assisting a person to become the best version of themselves?
So I do think self-leadership is step one. And we have a model that we call the leadership blueprint. And it's a progression from the beginning to like level 5 leadership. So level 1 is, can you lead you? That is learning emotional self-control, learning the stories that you're making up about what's real and what's not real. It's all of the aspects of self. And that's where the assessments come in really, really handy. Level 2 is, can you supervise people? The number one reason people quit their job is their direct supervisor. That actually accounts for 81% of turnover in business. So you need to learn, how do you leverage talent? How do you build an effective team? How do you maintain emotional intelligence within a team? And how do you create positive accountability? So
Level 2 is already hard.
yeah, level 2
Can I
is
just
very
say?
hard. Yeah. Honestly, level 1 is really hard.
Sure, sure.
And I don't think you're ever done developing level 1. No
Yeah.
matter how much you learn, it's still going to come back to, can I manage my concept of self and map it from who I believe I am to who I believe the best version of me is. That bridge from now to the best version is something that you're never done with, because as soon as you hit that next level, you're like, okay, well, what's the next level? Okay, what's the next level? And you're always trying to accomplish that next level. After the supervisor is the manager. That is strategy and planning, effective performance management and performance conversations, and then change management. How do you get people to buy into the progression in business? Those are hard too. And then you finally get into the leadership stuff, which is, now I lead a group of people who manage other people. You can manage a department or manage an organization. So that's going to take you through 4 different levels of leadership: developing connection, learning to correct behavior problems, learning to cast a vision for where you're going in the future, and then mapping out ways to make it stick. So the transformational leadership piece of it. And there's 12 total skills that are in that leadership model. Then you take it another level, and that's enterprise level leadership. And this is going beyond managing the people. And it's really, you think of how you understand what the Wright brothers did with flight, or what Thomas Edison did with innovation, or what currently Elon Musk has done with retooling multiple industries.
The big stuff.
That's the big stuff. And it goes beyond just the people side of it. It goes into the true strategic thinking.
Yeah.
So that's all the levels going through. So my philosophy is, anybody can improve their skill set if they first understand where they're at, they're willing to change, letting go of the ego to get where they need to be, and they will allow assistance in building that bridge to the next version of themselves. There isn't anybody that cannot change. There are lots of people that won't, but there isn't anybody that can't. So like the executive coaching piece, within 3 sessions, I'm going to know if a person is going to change. And if they're not, I just let the leadership team know, I wouldn't keep investing here. Save your money, move a different direction. Either don't promote them again, put them in a place where they can't hurt anybody, or give them the opportunity to excel elsewhere. So
That seems that for talking about such human aspects. Like change is hard
It
for
is.
humans. It is uncomfortable, and it's. I think humans find it much easier to stay put,
Yep.
regardless of whether they want to or not. So thinking about this, like kind of very like compassionate, human, part of us, and then going to a boss and saying like, "Nope, cut him loose."
Yeah. It is kind of interesting because I really am very compassionate towards people, but I also understand I am setting them up for failure if I encourage their promotion. I mean, go back to Lawrence J. Peter in 1968, who had the Peter Principle. He said, we systematically promote people beyond what we've developed for their competencies. So if somebody's good at being a widget maker, we go, you're a great widget maker. You should be in charge of widget makers.
Go manage widget maker. That happens all the time.
All the time. And we don't prepare people before we put them in that position. The safest thing that a business can do is always be thinking about your talent pipeline. If you are using the assessments to see who fits at the next level, because you can create a performance pattern, compare the existing people to the performance pattern and know who to invest in, then invest in those people with the skill sets that they need at that next level, you set everybody up for the win, including the business. But to your point about it's hard for people to change is actually simple as soon as you know how to change the story of self. Change is difficult if you refuse to address the stories that are keeping you where you're at. Because everything is just a story loop. Your subconscious mind just runs on repeat, and it's pulling from what's called the attribution mass, so this little, apperception mass, this little part of the brain that holds all the labels of meaning from your previous experiences. We have a tendency to just go, it looks like the last time, let's just use the same story again.
Totally.
We just keep pulling the same story. There is a process of erasing the old story and writing a new story. And that's where the psychology, I think, really comes in, is it's going beyond just, hey, you should get better at this. And it's addressing, here's why you've not gotten better at that. Let me show you how to let go of the old, embrace the new, and then you can get better.
This is feeling very therapy tool, and I love it.
That's kind of my natural state, is to go into the counselor mode.
No, I like it, and it makes so much sense. Like we all know, there's this girl up in my head keeps telling me the same stinking thing, and it makes sense.
And it's not a new concept. When you go back to Napoleon Hill in the 1920s, he was talking about finding your other self. And he was referencing things from Carl Jung, where you have this identity that is portrayed, but you have this stronger version of your identity that when you can tap into that other self, the one that cannot be beat, then you can be wildly successful. And he talked about that in his book, Think and Grow Rich, and just help people understand, find the other self. He has a formula for self-confidence that correlates to that. And we haven't changed it that much since the 1920s. So we're still doing the same basic premise. The human mind has not fundamentally changed since we started studying it.
Yeah. So, what do you do in your business now? Like, are you working with small local businesses? Are you work like you got some cool people to talk about? Like, what's that look like now?
We have some.
25 years, 30 years later?
Yeah, this is 26 and a half years in. Friona Industries is a phenomenal organization. They're cattle feeders here in town. 10 feed yards, an ethanol plant, feed start plant. I have loved working with them. So I get a variety of people that I work with from food production. I've done a lot of work in food production. Plains Dairy is one of my local clients here. I've done a lot of other manufacturing stuff as well, like Taiga Boats, the bounces between number 1 and number 2 wakeboard boat in the country, and they're built in Abilene, of all places.
I love finding that out, that
Right.
like not everything is built in China. We have really great manufacturing
We have
hubs.
phenomenal.
It
Charlie
happens
Pigeon
here.
is a genius on his boats and his design. He still has the same lead designer, a guy named Jeremy, that he's had for the last 26 years. But I get to work with a lot of cool people. Banks are really, right now, our biggest client base, because we have HR advisory groups across Illinois. So we have 72 banks in our groups that we work with, and we go once a quarter and spend a day with one group and another day with another group, another day with another group. So all in all, 72 different HR directors from banks, keep them updated on what's going on in the banking world, and then do basically group coaching. How are they dealing with their problems? What can we do to help? What skills can we add in? So the variety has been awesome. Like I've worked with the Fortune 50, I've worked with mom and pops. Sweet spot for us has typically been on community banks, that's under 50 employees. Pretty much everybody else, regardless of industry, is the 100 to about 600 employee range.
I think that's neat. I would have assumed that your business kind of sits staunchly in white collar, in banks and finance and things like that. But I really love, because
Yeah.
I always love to challenge assumptions and stereotypes. I really love that you're like working with feed yards, because feed yards also have to grow talent and
They do.
work efficiently and well.
And they're some of the most sophisticated people you'll ever meet. And I think there's a misconception about,
Totally.
oh, they're just feeding cattle. The technology that is integrated into a feed yard these days is phenomenal. So it's a lot of fun. I have fun with all my clients, but the feed yard business has been really good. I mean, I grew up with ranching. My granddad was a rancher and other granddad was a farmer. So I was always around agribusiness growing up. And when I got to get back to some of that with my roots, it was so nice to go, oh, I have a basis for this, that I did this until I was 16 years old. And now I get to go back and do it from a different angle.
I would love to tell you about Ingenic Dental Studio here in town. Dr. Jake Motery is my family's dentist, and he and his staff give us just the best family dental experience. But his practice and expertise go so much further than my kids' cavities and my routine cleanings. Dr. Motery specializes in cosmetic and implant dentistry. I've seen some of the work he's done, and it is just gorgeous. It's nothing over the top, very natural looking, but with results that really change a person's whole look. So if you're looking for family or personal dental care, or for a more aesthetically enhancing experience, check out Ingenic Dental Studio online or at their location on Georgia next to Market Street and Steak Express. So in addition to the kind of like the formal client relationship that your company engages with, corporations and businesses, like you do a lot of other cool stuff. I think you write, you speak a lot. I've caught you at a lot of really great events. Talk about kind of like that extracurricular, right? It's probably part of the business, but yeah.
We work with, I think it's 14 different chambers now around Texas and Oklahoma, and we do a lot of their leadership programs. So like their, say, Leadership Dripping Springs, for example, we do the opening retreat for them every year. And we've only missed one since they started the program. But that's one of the things we do. I do a lot of keynote speeches, and I brought one of my books with me. It's called Faces of Reality. That's our most popular keynote, and it's how to read anybody like a book in 10 seconds or less. And it goes into the structure of the human face as correlated to psychological tendencies. You can look at a person and know how they make decisions, how they judge themselves, what their insecurities are, how they process information, even what their love language is just by looking at their left ear. So all of that is just a blast. We do a lot of the keynote stuff. It's usually for associations that we're doing the keynotes, if they're doing an annual conference or anything like that. And then we do 2 seminars a year that are like big seminars. One is Supervisor 101, one is Management 101. So we do Supervisor 101 in the spring, just did that one a few weeks ago, and then we do Management 101 in the fall.
And is that here in town?
Yeah.
Oh, very
and
cool.
We typically sell out of those. It's about 80 seats that we can fill, and we almost always fill the 80 seats and then turn people away. And I feel bad for turning them away, but I'd rather sell out than not get there.
I get that. Okay, I'm really glad that you brought up the face stuff, because I saw that training and I think it's really very interesting. Okay, so tell me a little bit, like what are some cool snippets?
All right, so if you look at a person's forehead, if it looks like it's flat from the outside edges of the eyebrows, so look, it flattens it going across, that's a logical decision maker. If it looks like it rounds, that's an emotional decision maker. If the forehead is really tall, that is an overthinker. They're intellectual, but they overthink everything they're doing. If the hairline goes low and the forehead looks short, that is somebody that would use more of their intuition or their street smarts in decision making. Now, combine the forehead.
Or they get Botox.
Yeah, I will tell you, I did do the face reading program for Junior League here, and they had a Botox party right beforehand. Like, apparently none of you have facial expressions.
We're we're going to focus on the ears now.
Yeah, like the ears are still good and the nose was fine, but the forehead and
A little unclear.
there's
That's so
no
funny.
crow's feet anywhere.
So why is that not just their DNA? How is that an
So
indicator?
some of it is.
Yeah.
So your DNA
Like
plus
their
your
forehead.
experience will shape the way that you view the world. The debate in psychology was always, are we a product of our genetics or are we a product of our environment?
Yeah.
And every study has come back and said, well, both. You're not just your genetics and you're not just your environment.
Sure.
The interesting thing is working in a couple of mental hospitals over the years, you can see things like eye color shift in a person who has dissociative identity disorder. When they go to their other version of themselves, their eye color can shift in a few seconds. So like blue is curious and fun and outgoing, but brown is family oriented. And green is, I like a lot of things coming my way. I just like to be really, really busy. So you're gonna see the different colors of the eyes, and you'll know, well, that's the core of that person's personality. One of the cool ones that we did was with people who worked with autistic children. And autistic kids are very literal. Everything is mechanical.
Yeah.
Well, if you can teach them the basics of understanding mechanically how to shift the way they talk to a person by looking at chin, cheekbones, forehead, and ears, then you can help them actually relate in a way that other people think, oh, they're getting me.
Yeah, that it translates, right?
Yeah, it translates over just nicely. This is also very helpful from a coaching standpoint for me because I can get to know a person in about 15 or 20 seconds as opposed to 5 or 6 sessions. It speeds up my capacity for creating positive change because I know what they're going to respond to. Like you've got the lines on the sides of your nose, which means that you're very independent. I would never tell an independent person how to change themselves. I would ask strategic questions. So I would go in and say, well, I know that this is a place that you want to get to. Walk me through why you think you're at the place you're at and what you think you could do differently moving forward, instead of saying you need to do this in order to move forward.
Okay, so how sturdy is that for you? Like, is it something where you take your training and your understanding of the indicators on the face for a person, and you say like, okay, we're gonna rely on this to be 70% of my estimation of this person, or in your long time experience at this point, I mean, do you go with it? It's like, no, I don't care what you say about yourself. You're independent. I know this is true about you. Obviously not verbally, but
yeah, I would say obviously I would never say that to a person. But the reality is you're going to have a combination of what their core is and what their adaptations are. So you watch the way that they interact with you, you get an initial read and you test those assumptions out.
Okay.
Then you adjust, because even though if you're a highly independent person, but over the years you figured out, well, that doesn't really work with people all the time, so I'm going to have to adjust to this to make sure that I'm connecting. You might adjust in order to make it actually work a little bit better.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And in the research that we've done, it's over 90% accurate. There is nothing that is 100% accurate. If you get an assessment that is 90% accurate, it's like the gold standard. Most assessments are valid at 70% accuracy. So you're getting way better than most personality tests by getting the key characteristics of a person's face and correlating that to their tendencies. The face it's not like reading a palm and seeing the future, it's reading a face and understanding the past. Now, what they do in the future is still completely up to them. They can still adapt any behavior. I just know what their natural tendencies would be at that point.
That makes perfect sense. And 90% you can bank on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you look at decision making with the forehead, with the eyes and eyebrows, the projection of self into the world, the cheekbones and nose, any kind of insecurities or things they might push back on you with, the mouth and the chin are self-evaluation, and the ears are information processing. So you have these categories of things, and when I first started studying this, I'm like, oh, it's so easy. There's only 342 things you have to memorize in combination. Like, nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
Unless they're weird.
Yeah.
And so I spent 12 years becoming weird, studying that stuff, and then I really like to simplify stuff. So if people could understand, just look for decision making. And there's a bunch of characteristics on the forehead, but you can look at the forehead and just study one section, and that helps you understand how a person's going to make decisions.
Cool. What do you love about your job?
Well, I love people, so I think that's the main thing. And in particular, I love when people are trying to figure out how to become that better version of themselves. I do work with difficult people and try to get them corrected and quote unquote fixed, according to corporate jargon.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when you find people that want to perform at a higher level, they're already past that I'm stuck in my old way. They're the ones that are really engaging. So I love the people aspect of what I get to do. I do also love research. I read books constantly, about 40 books a year. I don't read fiction. I've tried, I'm just not any good at it. So I read business books all the time so that I can understand how to do my job more effectively and just really enjoy that piece of I get to learn, I get to create, and then I get to apply it on helping people.
I'm thinking about, that all sounds really great, and it makes a lot of sense. I also know that working with people can be really frustrating.
It can be.
Yeah, we are so deeply flawed and difficult. And, it sounds like you approach the work from a very like practical, you can change, you just have to want to, right? Like from a
Yeah.
practical and certainly researched place. When does your work become very frustrating?
I think it's when you're too far on the side of, figure out if we need to fire these people. When companies are hiring you because they're already mad at somebody, it's hard to not just fix the person, it's hard to fix the management perception. And that gets really frustrating. And
Yeah.
I do think people need outlets for how they recover from their own work, because you can get compassion fatigue, just like if you're a social worker. You really care about people deeply, you want to help them, but you get exhausted. Finding your recovery zones, that's critical. For me, I exercise. That's the thing that has always worked for me. I've been a martial artist most of my life, so I enjoy that. I do that really just by myself at the house now, and then I go to the gym. And I work out twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, and I get my stress level low in the morning, and then I lower it back down at the end of the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we talked one kid earlier. What is Jody family today?
So I have two daughters that are grown. The older daughter lives here in town. She has two kids, so I'm already a grandpa at 53 years old, and they are phenomenal. Grandkids are way funner than regular kids. I love my kids, but my granddaughters are awesome. And then the other daughter is actually a psychologist as well, and she has worked for me for the last 3 years and will eventually take over the business when I retire.
Oh, that's
And she
lovely.
lives in the Austin area.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What is the geographical spread of your business? Kind of
We
while we're
used
at
to
it.
do international. We did a
Oh.
lot of that up until about 2005, and then the travel is just wearing us out because we were going to a number of different countries to do work, and it's fun and you see a lot of cool places, but you lose a lot of time just in the travel and in the recovery from the travel. So now, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, New Mexico, a little bit into Colorado, and a bunch in Illinois.
Yeah. Where
And-
did Illinois go? You just met the right guy that got you in the door, or what?
Met the right lady that got me in
Lady,
the door.
thank
yeah.
you.
And so Elaine and I have been friends and collaborators for 25 of the 26 and a half years I've been in business.
Nice.
She comes here and does things. I go to there and do things. And we kind of know what her specialty is and my specialty. So we just refer back and forth to each other. And then I am in the process of buying out her business. She is now in her 70s. Is the longest running YMCA aerobics instructor in the United States.
I love her.
Still teaches actively and wears young people out at 72 years old. She'll be 73 this month. But she is just a ball of fire. But she's like, I just need to retire. I'm getting too old for this and I want to travel.
That's perfect. I have never met her. I don't know what she looks like, but in my mind, she is in hot pink leotard with some leg warmers, and I
Let me
love
give you
it.
one different image. She dresses up in costumes all the time. So I have a video of her dressed as a leprechaun teaching aerobics at the YMCA in Sterling, Illinois.
Wonderful.
She loves that stuff. And she does, she'll dress up in everything from hot pink to Olaf costume during the winter.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I guess what I'm wondering around is, I think organizations find culture change very difficult.
I agree. They do find it difficult, but it's mostly because they don't have a model to follow. When we go, oh, we need to change our culture, most people are thinking we need more perks so that people will be nicer and work harder. Well, it's not the perks that actually make them work harder. It's the meaning of the work. And there's three key components to creating culture change. We actually have an event coming up at the end of April. It's a 3-day online program called the Bold Culture Challenge. And it is, how do you create alignment within your team? How do you create effective workflow and productivity systems and manage those? And then how do you create the right feedback loops? So 3 one-hour sessions over a 3-day window for the regular ticket, 2 hours for the VIP tickets, but it's taking them through the model for creating culture change. Very early in my career, I was asked to help create culture change in a manufacturing plant. And I went, yeah, absolutely. I have no idea how to do that, but I'll go read the books. And I went and got any book that I could. I studied Cotter's theory on change and Lewin's theory on change and anything else I could find on change. And then I started studying what Drucker talked about with culture and what you could find with like the Gallup organization. You start synthesizing all of that together, and it really just comes down to those three components: a system for creating team alignment, a system for workflow and productivity management, and a system for effective communication and feedback. So,
Well, you make it sound so easy.
well, that's the goal, is to simplify the complicated.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I think finally I'm wondering about, you are a highly motivated, hungry individual,
Yeah.
and I've been through some of your sessions before and certainly listened to you speak and in this conversation. And it is your business, in fact, to apply positive change and growth
Correct.
to people kind of all over. And I wonder about like, what is your approach to like work-life balance?
One, I know this is going to sound weird. I don't actually believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life harmony. And I think there's a difference there, because work-life balance, the way you would define it for one person, isn't how you would define it for somebody else. So each person has a harmonious blending of how much they work and how much they play. When I was in business about 4 years, I'd never taken a day off at that point. I worked 4 straight years, 7 days a week. Clearly, I was not good at it at that point. And I
Not
went,
in harmony.
right. I go, I need to take some vacation. So I set a goal in year 5 to take 4 weeks of vacation, 1 week per quarter. And it was phenomenal. And I found that about a week a quarter was my recovery time, and it reinvigorated my creativity, just kind of let me reset. The next year I go, I'm going to take 6 weeks. That's too much. 4 weeks is still perfect for me. If I can take 1 week per quarter, I recover just nicely and I do good. I try to take 1 full day a week off where I don't do anything. I don't.
Is this a 7-day week?
Out of a 7-day week, yeah.
Okay.
So I typically work Monday through Friday with clients. Saturday I work on projects and creativity that I love. That's writing books and researching and doing the things that I enjoy. And then Sunday, that's family. Don't do anything there. And I really did marry well, so I have a wife that understands me and understands I'm never going to be the guy that's like, I want to be done at 5 and I don't want to work anymore after that. Because it's just not how I'm wired. It wasn't how I was wired even when we were dating. So when we started dating, I worked 2 part-time jobs and I was taking 18 hours of college. So I haven't changed really since I was 17 years old and met my wife. We're still basically the same people that we were back then.
Which is kind of a funny statement to make after the whole conversation that we've had about change.
Yeah. So I've changed a lot of what I know, but I don't think I've changed too much of my identity. So even then, I liked helping people, and I didn't know what coaching was, but I had a lot of friends that would come to me like, I just can't figure this out in life. I go, well, let's just talk through it.
Yeah.
And so even as a teenager, I enjoyed that piece of it. So like I said, anybody can change. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to change.
Yeah.
And if what you're doing is working, why should you change?
That's a fair point.
So change is necessary when it's crashing you, not when it's making you succeed.
What do you aspire to?
I know this is going to sound weird from an entrepreneur, but I just want to keep doing what I'm doing as long as I can. And I let go of you need to go get rich a long time ago. I do enjoy my work. I charge, I think, a fair wage for what I do. And I want to keep doing it as long as I can. And I just can't imagine retiring. That's really not how most of the men in my family were wired. My granddad worked till he was 83. and he was supposed to go to work that day, but didn't work out for him. But he was happy the whole time he was doing it. So I aspire to be a good dad, a really good granddad. So I'm a pawpaw to my granddaughters.
Perfect.
I aspire to stay married to the same woman for the rest of my life, and I want to leave people better than I found them. And if I do those things, I've lived a great life.
This episode is sponsored by the Amarillo Art Institute at Arts in the Sunset. If you haven't been, this place is an amazing center for Amarillo's vibrant art scene. They have monthly events, including the First Friday Art Walk, which showcases the artists they have in residence, and there are some incredibly talented people with all sorts of wares and mediums there. They also offer classes for children and adults in things such as glass blowing, weaving, and pottery. All of it really is just so cool. Check them out on Facebook. That's Arts in the Sunset. Okay, I'm back with Jody Holland. Jody, this is the part of the show we call 8 Straight.
Let's hit them.
Let's do it. When you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
I hope we have consistent growth in business, and I hope we find some things that really make us stand out in Texas.
When was the last time you went to Paladora Canyon?
Well, I went there several times in 2025, and I will be there several more times this year.
Nice. Very good. So you go often?
I do, several times a year.
Hike, bike, what's your
We really
jam?
enjoy the hiking, and we love the Texas play. And when people come in from out of town, that is definitely one of the things we try to establish if it's during the time of the play.
I take my boys once a year to see Texas.
Yep.
It's great. Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
I hate to say it, but honestly, we have too much violent crime.
Gosh.
And if you look statistically at what's going on here, domestic violence in particular is out of control. We're not currently what you would consider a safe city per capita. And I know a lot of the crime is isolated in certain neighborhoods, but it's still not okay.
Yeah. Yep. What does this area not have enough of?
Smooth streets.
Mm-hmm.
I live out Osage, and if you ever drive out Ross Osage towards the Claude Highway, you will be on a roller coaster. I don't know if Wonderland has as many dips and turns.
It does get bumpy out there. What's your favorite local building, Jody?
I love everything in downtown, but in particular, I have loved the mural projects that they've done. So I love the Santa Fe building downtown, but really the murals on any of the buildings downtown are fantastic. And the Barfield is awesome.
Definitely. And favorite local restaurant?
I have several local restaurants that I love, so I give a shout out to Tyler's Barbecue, has best barbecue in the whole state of Texas, I would argue, followed by Spicy Mike's. Obviously, I love barbecue. And every month, I got to make sure I get my fire sliced pizza and the pizza of the month.
Nice. Very good. Okay, you have 4 hours to spend in Amarillo with someone who's never been here. What are you doing?
I can tell you I've had people come from India, from Egypt, from all kinds of other countries to work with me here. The things that we do are step 1, go to the Cadillac Ranch and paint the cars. Mm-hmm. Step 2, go to the Big Texan and see people try to eat the 72-ounce steak. And now I would add a step 3, which is take them to Buc-ee's. They got to have their Buc-ee's swag before they leave town.
Well, you're a very good commercial or salesperson for town.
Yeah, I tell you what, everybody loves that though. Everybody, even if they don't eat beef. The guy from India didn't eat beef, but he still wanted to go to the Big Texan. The guy from Cairo that came over here and spent a week with me, he gets on the phone with me before he's headed over. He goes, "There's a steakhouse that I would like to visit." I go, "Is it the Big Texan?" He goes, "Have you heard of it?" I have heard of it.
That's great. That's wonderful. Okay, finally, what do you think people get wrong about Amarillo?
Well, first, a lot of people think that everybody wears hats and boots and rides horses. And not all of us wear hats and boots and ride horses. Some of us do, but not all of us. Second thing is, people think that the Panhandle is ugly. And when they get here, the first time that they see a sunset, I think this is the most gorgeous sunset in the entire world. I've done 14 other countries. I would choose these sunsets over anywhere.
Yeah, I agree in its beauty. Finally, I like to end my episodes with offering my guests the opportunity to endorse something, something to try, know, look into around our area. What would you endorse?
I'm going to endorse two things very quickly. One, I talked about the murals. I think people should make it a point to get their picture taken in front of every mural that is painted in the Amarillo area. And the second is the Amarillo Area Foundation, the work that they do raising money and supporting nonprofits. And in particular, I've watched Brock Carter just like do a phenomenal job promoting the Panhandle Gives. So big shout out to Brock and all the work that he does there as well.
I love that. Brock is a friend, and I feel the exact same about the foundation. Incredible work over there.
Yep.
Jody, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Appreciate it.
Some music doesn't just fill a concert hall, it fills the soul. The Amarillo Symphony and Amarillo Master Chorale join forces for an evening of choral masterpieces. Arvo Part's ethereal Da Passem Domine and Brahms' deeply moving Requiem. Two great ensembles, two great works, and one unforgettable evening. April 24th and 25th, 7:30 at the Globe News Center for the Performing Arts. Tickets at amarillosymphony.org. And that concludes the episode. Thanks to Jody Holland for the interview. Thank you to Ingenic Dental Studio, the Amarillo Arts Institute, and the Amarillo Symphony for supporting the podcast, and to Broderick Adams for editing every week. Executive producers on this episode are Jim and Barbara Witten. And thank you for listening. This has been episode 445 of Hey Amarillo. I am Skylar Gallup, and we hope you'll join us next week.